Hello and welcome to today's webinar, a revolution for the electrical industry webinar with an electrical contractor focus. This webinar is brought to you by Applied Software, the premium software systems integrator in North America. I am Cliff Trotter and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. Throughout our presentation, we encourage you to interact with us by typing in questions and comments using the questions pane. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available to you online on our YouTube channel. We will also send you an email following the webinar with a link to the recording. If you haven't already, search Applied Software on Facebook and like our page to receive the latest information and special offers. When you visit our website, asti.com or asti.com, there is a complete schedule of upcoming events, webinars, trainings, and more. Please take note of our upcoming webinars. The BEM 360 Hangout utilizing your Navisworks model in BEM 360 Field. That's going to be Thursday, May 5th, 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And Revit Commercial Contractors for BEM. That's Friday, May 6th, 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And please take note of our upcoming events. AGC Georgia Construction Conference, Friday, May 27th, 7:30 to 2 p.m. That's at the Georgia International Convention Center here in Atlanta. Offshore Technology Conference, May 2nd through 5th. Our location is going to be booth 6016. That's at NRG Park, Houston, Texas. And BEM and Beer, DC, Washington, D.C., coming up Thursday, May 19th. Time's going to be 5:30 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be at the District Chop House and Brewery. Now, following the Q&A at the end of the webinar, we will randomly give away a $25 Visa gift card. You must be present to win the gift card. All right, and coming up we've got Roy Lavardette. He has been an electrical designer for about 35 years and he's been a power user of the building electrical modeling software for over a decade, and he is our Director of Services for building electrical modeling. Roy, take it away.
Thank you, Cliff, and welcome to everyone to our presentation. The BEM software consists of 4 modules that we call CARS, Cable and Raceway System. The principle of our program is that we will enter the information one time in a central database, and then from that database we will drive our deliverables through the various modules. So let's talk about these 4 modules today. Loadmatic is our load center design module where engineers will build their load list, and this will create one-line diagrams, control schematics, and also identify cable sizing, breaker sizing, validate bus sizing, and motor starter sizing if applicable. The information that we create in Loadmatic will synchronize over to Cablematic and Traymatic. Traymatic is our modeling module where we will build our raceway, locate our equipment, and we will install either conduit, cable tray, or duct banks or field route dropouts. Cablematic will then take the raceway information and we will develop a cable schedule. Some of those cables will port over from Cablematic, or we can add cables as we choose. Once our raceway is complete and our cables to and froms are complete, along with the cable size and the voltage level, the program will automatically route our cables through our raceway based on our origin and destination as defined in the Cablematic table. Once we've done this, we will be able to do tray fill calculations, conduit sizing and fill calculations, material takeoffs on cable, cable tray, and conduit, and we will be able to get many various other reports, including voltage drop calculations that are based now on the load plus the length. This information will synchronize back to Loadmatic. Any cable sizes that are changed due to voltage drop will then automatically be updated in Cablematic. The cable sizes will be updated in the database, so that the tray fill calculations will be readjusted and the conduit sizes, if appropriate, will be readjusted. Finally, once this information is completed in engineering, they will issue the database to the construction database, and our builders or our folks in the field will have access to all of this great data straight from the engineering database. We will be able to create pull tickets, termination reports, and real allocations, do our pull planning, keep track of our inventory, and status our projects. The Cablematic Builder database will synchronize with the Cablematic Engineering database on a regular basis to be determined by the project team, so that everyone will be able to stay up to date on the latest information on the project. All right, let's take a quick look at some of the reports that we'll be able to generate. The cable bill of material will be based on the cables that are actually used in our project. If we're using multi-conductor cable, it'll give us a takeoff including the manufacturer and a model number of the cable. The entire Southwire cable catalog comes with the software, so if you're going to use Southwire as your cable spec, the information is already in the database. But as you can see here, other cable manufacturers are also allowed. You can input the data into the spec. Similarly, on cable tray, we will provide a library of B-line cable tray, typically the aluminum series, so that you will have a cable tray database to begin your project with. Good thing about this is once you've got this information in the database, if you choose to use a different manufacturer than what's provided with the software, you've got a template that you can copy and modify so that you don't have to start from scratch. Another great feature is the ability to change from copper to aluminum with a single click. As you know, many times our projects are initially designed using copper conductors, and then toward the end of the project, someone comes up and says, hey guys, how can we save some money? Well, our software allows you to quickly evaluate the cost in a copper to aluminum transition without necessarily changing all your project data. So you can get a takeoff on the aluminum cable and compare the cost. If you decide to switch to an aluminum conductor, you simply click and the program will automatically resize your conduit, recalculate your cable tray fill, and will update your bill of material for all of the affected entities or products. Another great feature is Southwire's pull calculator. This will allow us to evaluate the pull tension calculations on our conduits. It'll look at sidewall pressure, jam probability, clearance. It will give you a list of the cables that are contained, the properties of the raceway, coefficient of friction, and maximum pulling tension. It will also highlight and alert you to any area that is of concern or outside of the code or the guidelines. Pull and termination tickets are available. They are currently available in a Microsoft Word report that can be printed, and the information will then be entered into the field pretty much the same way that you're keeping track of your pulls and terminations today. But now you can enter that information into the database, and it will keep track of which reel a cable was pulled from, what the original inventory was on that reel, and what your current status is on there. You can also evaluate how the actual construction is being done compared to what the project plan was. So if you're using more cable than you anticipated, it gives you an alert ahead of time so that you can reorder cable to keep your project from having delays due to material not being around. These tickets are also going to be available very soon in an Excel spreadsheet format, and we're going to be able to put those on a tablet so you can take the foreman can take this information out to the field and keep track of it electronically. This is the cable inventory report, which will show the original length of the cable, how much has been pulled off of that reel, how much is remaining on that reel, the date you received it, the purchase order number, the ship date, order date, etc. In addition, we have the ability to interface with the Brady cable and wire marker system. So any information that we put in a database, we can automatically generate cable and wire markers for you. We also have revision control capability. It will keep track of cable, termination, and raceways as the changes occur to the project, and also the status, so that when changes are occurring in engineering at the same time that construction is going on, everyone will be on the same page. Hopefully it'll be able to prevent mistakes from being made, and rework will be minimized. There are a variety of reports that we can generate. We can look at the design status, the progress in the field, and the remaining work to be done, and evaluate this compared to how you were scheduled to do the work. Now, before we get to questions, I'm gonna minimize this for just a second, and we're gonna go take a look at, this is gonna be a live demo, by the way. I love doing live demos because exciting things always happen. You can't ever really tell what's gonna come up in a live demo. Let's take a quick look at the system that we're going to be looking at. I have a data center design here that we've put together for this presentation, and we've got 2 parallel generators on a medium voltage bus stepping down to low voltage buses, and then we've got several distribution panels or motor control centers hanging off of the low voltage switchgear, where we're going to put our critical loads and non-critical loads. So this is kind of an overview of the project that we're looking at. Here's a layout. I've got my generators on the outside of the duct bank coming into my medium voltage switchgear, going back to my step-down transformer, feeding back into my low voltage switchgear, which then feed my motor control centers. Here are my air conditioning units on the outside, my UPS system with all of my battery banks here. I've got some conduits running over to the electrical room on the back side of the building, and then from there we're going to feed in cable tray under the raised floor to the racks in this room and to the racks in that room. So if we take a look at this in isometric view, this is all Revit modeled equipment, by the way. We can handle equipment either in a generic form, which if we don't need to use the Revit families, we have the ability to put in a box with just a height, depth, and width, or you can use your custom Revit families. The program will work in either case. So we will go ahead and model the Revit equipment and the Revit raceways. Once the raceways are done in Revit, we have the ability, and I'll show you the CARS interface. This is the new module that is added to the Revit program, where we will then interface with the CARS database. We can do export from Revit into CARS, and we can import from CARS back into Revit. So we can work it bidirectional. Cool Tools allows us to query the database and to do a whole bunch of design work that's not necessarily available in Revit. One of the things that we can do is we can look at equipment, raceways, and cables. So if I were, for example, to select equipment, let me just go over here and pick the medium voltage switchgear. The medium voltage switchgear, I can then add the connected cables. So these are the cables from the generator to the switchgear, and then from the switchgear to the transformer. This is the feeder data, that's hard to say, coming from the generator to the. It's telling us that I need 2 conductors per phase of 350, 3-conductor 500 kc mil, medium voltage cable, and I'm actually running this in a 4-inch conduit. We have the ability to lock conduit sizes, or we have the ability to have the program resize conduit based on what we actually route. So now that we have this information in the database, let's take a look at our cable schedule. Now, if our engineers are using Loadmatic and have created the cables in Loadmatic and you can get them electronically, that's great. You don't even have to input this information. It's already going to be available for you. However, if you're going to, let me bring this back in. Okay. If you're going to get the the data either in paper or from an engineer in an Excel spreadsheet. On an Excel spreadsheet, you can copy and paste it straight into this input form. This is just an interface, a front end to interface to our database. Because as you know, databases are very delicate and very sensitive, and there is no undo. Well, this allows us to query the database, pull in the information that we need, and then manipulate it and then save it back to our database. So in order to route cable, we will need a unique cable tag, a from and a to on our equipment, and a cable type or cable specification, and we'll also need to know the voltage level. The program will not put a medium voltage cable, for example, in a low voltage or a safety tray. So we have to identify the voltage level of each cable and associate that to the service level of the raceways that we're going to be routing them in. So this is our cable schedule input form, and we have defined and created 314 cables for this particular project. So going back to this, if we take a look at these medium voltage cables and go ahead and route those cables, go ahead and route those cables, and then the program will show us how the cable was routed through the raceway. This is not actually a Revit conduit. It is just there to show you which conduit the cable was actually routed in. So you can identify that and keep track of it. So to race the cables, now let's go take a look at all of the cables on this project. The program works very quickly to route cable, so we can there we go. Sorry, having a little bit of a technical difficulty there. It's the fun of live presentations. So if we go ahead and clear all of the list here, I could now select all of the equipment on my project. And for some reason, it's not cooperating with me. Okay, let's do this a different way. We could individually route cables the way I just demonstrated, or we can go to back to our cable list, and we can copy all of our cables. That's not all of them. Let me query my database again and import our 314 cables. So I'll copy those cables into my clipboard and go to batch route and go ahead and route all of those cables. How long does it normally take you to route that many cables through a raceway system like the one we're looking at? When I ask that question, I'll get an answer of anywhere from a week to a month. We just routed that. There were a few that didn't work, and we'll go back and address those. Nice thing is it tells you which ones had an error. But of the 314 cables, over 300 of those routed successfully. I can now go to my design reports and get my tray fill report with a list of the cables and create that report. It's asking me if I want to resize those raceways, and I'm going to say no. So the program will then tell me that the 6 raceways, this is TP001, it contains all of these cables, and it is 57% full based on this section of the National Electrical Code. And as you can see, other cable trays are at various percentages of fill. We've set our limit at 80%. So if we were to get to an 80% fill percentage, because I've got a 20% reserve, the program will not go ahead and continue to add cables to that particular raceway. It will look for another raceway, or it will give you an error that says that it could not find a route. Similarly, we could do the same thing with conduit, and if I do a DB query, I can find my conduits that are, let's just pick everything that has an RP and get that report. And again, I want a list of the cables that are contained in a conduit. I can give it a name. Do I want to resize these conduits? Yes, I'm going to let the program resize the conduit based on the fill percentage and the constraints that I've set. Now on my project, I set the minimum EMT size at 1 inch. So this particular conductor is a UPS feeder. It's got a maximum fill of 40% because it's probably 3 or more conductors, and it is actually filled 14% of this 1 inch EMT, and it's going from the MCC to the UPS. As I scroll down, I can see the conduits that are in my project. This is a multi-conductor conduit, so there's only one cable jacket, which allows me a maximum fill percentage of 53%. And since it's an underground duct bank, I wanted it to remain and lock at a 4 inch PVC, so it's only 18% full. One more report real quick. We're going to take a look at the cable material takeoff. This will give us a list of all of the cables that we just routed. It's going to give us the manufacturer catalog number and a description, as well as a number of times I use that particular cable spec for a total length of 600 feet in this case. It's going to do my single conductor cables, separating them by color. It'll also do the multi-conductor cables. And all told, we just routed over 37,000 feet of cable. Okay, let's go back to our cable schedule now. I'm going to go to Advanced Tools, and I'm going to build my Excel table. This will open an Excel spreadsheet, and will create a cable schedule. Actually, it's going to create more than a cable schedule. Let's take a look at the cables. Now, this is the out-of-the-box cable schedule. This cable schedule is customizable. In fact, most of the reports that you're going to see are customizable to suit your specific project, client, or company standards. So in this case, I've got an Excel spreadsheet with my cable tag, my conductor size or cable size, the segregation code is the voltage level, the from, the to, and the length and the route. And down here you'll see that I've got some cables that actually routed through multiple conduits through a pull box. So we're able to get a total length and the actual route that it took from point A to point B. Another report is our conduit report. It's telling us the conduit size, the service level, or voltage level of that raceway, the total length, the from and to of that conduit, and the fill percentage, as well as the cables contained. Some cases we've got more than one cable in a conduit. It's identifying that for us. Got an equipment list. Not very informative because I have not put in any of my additional fields that I might want to put on a equipment list, such as the area, the service level, I mean the plant system, the work package, startup systems, etc. We've got various fields that we can add to our cable and to our equipment, so that will help us to cut down on our queries. In other words, we could set up work packages and only pull cable and equipment from specific work packages. And then finally, here's our cable tray. Again, this is a schedule, so it's just telling us that this is a 36-inch wide, 6-inch high lateral aluminum tray, and it's giving us its length, percent fill, and the NEC rule that it used to calculate that fill percentage. Another report that we can get, go back to the previous screen, is status and summary reports. Here we can get a cable estimate. I really like this report because in addition to giving me the material takeoff on my cable with color code, it also compiles a black jacket estimate. So if we were going to buy all black jacket and then color code with tape at the end, I don't have to add up all of the numbers, the program will do that for me. Additionally, where aluminum conductors are available to substitute, it will swap out the copper for an aluminum equivalent with the same opacity, and then if you choose to go with the aluminum alternative, the program will readjust your conduit sizes based on the larger diameters of the aluminum cable, as well as recalculate your tray fill percentage based on the larger diameter conductors. Finally, and I need to open another project to show you this, we can get our, this is our BEM interface here, and in this case, this is an issued database. You see it's got a asterisk in front of it. It's not a hashtag. We're not going on Twitter with this one. But it identifies that this is a construction database. So when I open that database, it allows me then to get some information, because the contractor or the construction group will need to be able to get some information from engineering. So they have the ability to query some things like the cable data sheet that we looked at earlier when we defined it. Now, as you can tell, this one's a little different than the engineering, because this is a read-only, this is a read-only field from the construction side of reading data from the engineering side. So if I pick two of these cables, I'm going to pick the 701s. If I copy that list and then go back to my tickets and I want to print my pull tickets, I can paste that list into my list of tags. I'm going to assign a foreman. It'll be me today. And I'm going to go ahead and print that. Now look, it's going to give me a warning to say that one of these cables, the ticket was already printed, and that cable was already reported as pulled. The second ticket was printed for a different foreman on a different day, and that cable is not pulled. So the program is aware of the status of each of these cables. So for simulation purposes, I'm going to go ahead and print these tickets anyway to show you what they look like. This is a 24-pair instrument cable. It's going from the control panel to the instrument junction box. And this is the cable route that it's the cable tray route that it's taking, including the multi-cable transits as it passes through the building wall. The date that it gets pulled, it will be dated. The technician that did the pulling will identify it, and he'll identify the cable reel that it was pulled from, and either use the foot markers on the cable or the actual cut length. It's your choice as to how you want to track your cable inventory. For the foreman's use, we also have a quality control section that is customizable on each of our tickets. And then there's a second ticket, basically this, very similar information. So you can print these out, send them to the field. Do you want to print associated conduits that are not installed? We could find out if we're trying to pull this cable. We can query the database to say, are all of the conduits installed that I need for this cable? I'm going to go ahead and print the cable termination. I don't know, a lot of companies work with, hang on a second. A lot of companies work with wiring diagrams. This is an alternative. You're not required to use it, but in a lot of cases this is easier to use because you can hand your electrician a termination report for each cable. It'll tell him to go into CP 720, and here's your cable wire colors and wire markers. It tells you the termination point at the origin and the termination point at the destination. And again, at the bottom, I've got a reporting section to indicate when termination was actually made, who did the work, and also a quality control section for your foreman or your inspector to go in and to verify that the work was done. Do you want to print cable and wire markers? I'm going to say no, but we can print those using the Brady system. Now that we've got some cables pulled and terminated, we can go to our reports and we can get a status on our cable reels. This will keep track on a current basis of the reel number, the size of the cable on that reel, the date we received it, the date we ordered it, the date it was shipped, purchase order number if applicable, and also the original length that came on that cable. And as you see, as we pull cables from this reel, it keeps track of how much cable you have left on that reel on a case-by-case, reel-by-reel, cable-by-cable basis. So it allows you to evaluate what your design criteria was for ordering this cable and what your actual installed length is. It'll cut down on waste and make your project much more efficient. So that's a real quick high-level overview. Obviously, the program does a lot more than I'm able to show you in a short presentation. If you would like more information, we would love to have you communicate with your sales rep at Applied Software. And we're going to give you some information. If you don't know who your rep is, we'll give you some information to be able to get in contact with them. So with all that said, I'm going to ask Cliff to pick up again. And let's go ahead and continue with our presentation. Hang on, let me switch this. There we go. Cliff?
All right. Just want to see, we had a question come in, Roy, if you could field about how the licensing works, and a further one after you give a description on that, but there's one that kind of parlays with that one.
Okay, sure, no problem. We sell a license. We actually lease the software. The nice thing about it is very cost effective to get the software on a lease. You might have a project team that grows and shrinks as your project workload increases and decreases. So it will give you the ability then to right size your license count. Our licenses are available in a cloud license format, so you buy a block of licenses. They are available to you anywhere in the continental United States and Canada currently, and we're working on international licensing as well. But you will be able then to pull the licenses as needed. If you have an EPC company, or if you're working with designers in the office and construction folks in the field, they can share these licenses, so you do not have to buy separate licenses for each installation.
Okay, and to build on that one just a little bit, if you're working with, say you are an EPC firm who is using the software, and you're working with another engineering firm who doesn't have the software, how do those play together? Will the other person have to have the software for the software to work correctly?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for that. First of all, the software creates deliverables in AutoCAD, Revit, Excel, and Word. Once those deliverables are created, those are standalone products. Just the way you're handling your electronic data today and your filing system today will not change. You do not have to have the software to edit an AutoCAD file or a Revit file or a Excel spreadsheet that was created using the software. Now, obviously, if you're working with an engineer and they're using a software and they can give you the database, that's very easy and that's great. If, on the other hand, the engineer is not using our software, if he gives you an Excel spreadsheet, we will be able to copy and paste either individual cells, entire fields, or even entire records. If we can get the Excel spreadsheet set up in the right format, we can copy and paste directly from the Excel spreadsheet into our front-end interface to our database. If, on the other hand, you're unlucky enough to have consultants who are handing you paper or PDF files only, we do have a facility where you can input this data into our database. It's probably not any more time-consuming than the way you're translating that data into whatever electronic format you're using today.
Excellent. Thank you, Roy. Another question that popped up was, if you're doing a value engineering, switching types of wire from copper to aluminum, how is that affected downstream? Does the software change everything necessary on that path all the way back to, let's say, the one line, or how does that work?
Yes, it will. When you switch from copper to aluminum, the program will, as I said at the very beginning, we're using a database. So we're entering the data in any one place that we enter the data. The program will synchronize it across everywhere else that it's required. So in the event that you get to near the end of a project and you're asked to switch from copper to aluminum, the conductor size, number one, will change to accommodate the lower ampacity of the cross-sectional area of an aluminum conductor versus a copper conductor. When that happens, the impedance and the resistance of the conductors will change. That information will flow back into Loadmatic, and you can re-evaluate voltage drop based on your different construction material. It will adjust the conductor size and also the conductor OD. So if conduits are required to be upsized, the program will automatically do that, and you can import that information back into your Revit model or into your AutoCAD model, whichever you happen to be working with. Additionally, the tray fill will be recalculated based on the larger diameter of the aluminum conductors, and finally your bill of material will be updated as well as your cable schedule.
Awesome. Thank you, Roy. One other one here. When you are calculating the cable runs, is there an overage that's built in, and is that something that you can adjust per project or per run of cable? Or explain that a little bit more.
Great question. Thank you very much. When you set up your project, you do have it's called additional route length, or obviously in the construction field, we would sometimes refer to this as makeup length. As I said at the beginning, my background is mostly in offshore, so I've added 20 feet to each cable run for this makeup. That number is adjustable on a global basis, but also if you've got individual cables that you want to adjust using a different makeup length, you can take it. So to give you an example, coming from my incoming service from the utility meter into my main switchboard, I might want to make sure that I've got enough cable because those are larger conductors and that route might not be exact. So I might want to use a 20-foot length there. But when I'm doing my lighting circuits inside of a small building or inside of a small room or a warehouse or wherever I'm working, I'm not going to necessarily need to add 20 feet to every cable, to every run. Those lights might only be 5 or 10 or 15 feet apart. So that would be excessive. In that case, I would adjust those individually in the cable schedule, in the cable data table in the database, so I can put in an override of my additional route lengths.
Excellent. Thank you, Roy. And I think that was our last question. I'll just check the question pane one more time here. And that looks like that is it. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and announce our winner for the gift card. David Fiorini, if you're still with us, if you could just confirm by typing in the chat box. All right, David's still with us, so David, congratulations, and thank you very much for joining us again. At this point, I'm going to say thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar informative and helpful to your business. We look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.